Okay. Call the meeting to order. Please take the roll.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair. For members of the public, we'd like to bring your attention to the public notice on the first page of the agenda, and also acknowledge our land acknowledgement. This being the second meeting of the month, we won't read it, but we do encourage folks to go ahead and review it as the meeting goes on and moving forward. I'll now proceed to roll call. This meeting was ordered at 6:31 p.m. I'll start with. So Chair Cayetano is on a leave of absence today. Vice Chair Wilson.
Here.
Board Member Boswell Charcot. Here. Board Member Calavita.
Here.
Board Member Edmonds.
Here.
Board Member Leftwich.
Here.
And Board Member Will.
He's here.
He's
just
here. On behalf of the ODPA, we have Director Aguilar, Data Analyst Mendy, our investigative clerk, Dan Weinberg, and myself, Paul Cianas Camillo. On behalf of the BPD, we have Deputy Chief Tate joining us remotely, and Lieutenant Coates joining us here in person. With that, Vice Chair, forum.
All right. I am having trouble finding the agenda for whatever reason. Will remind me of a couple of notes. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Meanwhile, I need to find the agenda. So moved. Second.
Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing or hearing none, the motion is carried. Vice Chair, we can now proceed to public comment.
All right.
As a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but maybe allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. With that said, we'll start with those who are physically present first before moving on to our virtual attendees. With that said, is there any public comment?
Right. My name is Russell Bates. I lived in Berkeley for 52 years. I've been a member of Berkeley Cop Watch for 29 years, and I've been doing legal observing with National Lawyers Guild for 11 years now. I've also been doing Ice Watch over at 100 Montgomery, which is why I'm wearing this shirt today. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm there from 8 until noon, helping people who are going in for their hearings calm down a bit for them, and also to act as a slight deterrent without obstructing or resisting or anything else. The ICE agents, when they come around, although we try to make it as difficult as possible without allowing ourselves to be to break any laws. It's interesting, the surveillance thing that Councilmember Taplin wants to bring about here. When I was in Vietnam Veterans Against the War in Chicago, we were surveilled quite a bit, and we were told at that point that there were satellites in the air that could read a license plate from up in space. So the surveillance has always been a problem. Surveillance is always, over surveillance is becoming more and more of a problem. It's an overreach that allows so much invasion of privacy, although on the street, there's no expectation of privacy. Still, we should be able to go about our business without having our pictures taken. And there are apps for all these camera innovations, especially with Motorola, that can allow for facial recognition. Now, when facial recognition is added to the license plate readers and everything else, we're setting up conditions for, especially now, where brown-skinned people and people of color can be arrested just because of their color and the language that they're speaking. This is just gonna spread surveillance so much, and it's just such a really bad idea to do it. And also the UC has encrypted their police communications, totally not. And whereas the Berkeley police, I believe, has one unencrypted channel, that people can listen to. And that's very important to me, that an absolute police statement gonna stop them like, stop from happening. I mean, why do you wanna hide what you're doing? I wanna know what's going on there, and I think we all need to know what's going on here. So that's all I have to say, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay.
My name is Kit Stagnor, and I've come, as I often do, to thank you for the work you do. I really appreciate the work you do. It's not easy, and unfortunately, it's not as appreciated as it should be. Just giving you, I was at the recent agenda review meeting, and I was really kind of appalled to see that your director was really treated with some disrespect in terms of the items that he was asking to have put on the agenda. Basically, the council, you are here to advise and make recommendations to the council. The council should want to hear those recommendations. And it was distressing that the council does not seem to want to hear those recommendations. So I just wanted to sort of give you that observation. And then on another topic, at a recent council meeting, the item about having surveillance cameras, another contract with Flock surveillance camera was withdrawn, but it will come back in October. And you know, I know you've heard many people and talk about the fact that Flock has given information to ICE when they promised they wouldn't. And so now they once again are saying, well, we won't this time. But I don't know that you trust that. But another thing that hasn't been spoken about very frequently that I do want to mention is the contract language that was shared with the public for that last meeting said, you know, that this very important part, well, if they do get a subpoena, a court order, and they do have to give up the information, they will tell us. However, the language was put in there that says they will tell us if legally permissible. So basically they're saying they won't tell us if they're told they can't. And something that doesn't get much public notice these days are FISA reports. The FISA report is still out there. Everybody who's on it was appointed by the current Chief Justice. And a FISA warrant works so that it's a secret warrant. The person who gets the warrant is not allowed to tell anybody that they got a warrant. It's not allowed to tell anybody what information they're giving in response to it. The whole thing would not be allowed. So it seems to me that the contract language really should say, you know, we will give this information if they present us with a FISA warrant. And that's fairly likely to happen, I suspect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And one more speaker.
Yeah, good evening, and likewise, I'd like to thank. Pretty thankful in this town. For a lot of time. What I wanted to just share with you is that, yesterday I had the opportunity to go and be oriented. I serve on the mental health commission. And, I've been working since 2013 to try to make right what happened to Kayla Moore. I don't know if I think you're familiar with that. Kayla Moore was a woman who lived with schizophrenia over in downtown Berkeley. Her family's a Berkeley family. You know, long story short, she, as a result of a wellness check, she ended up underneath a pile of police officers and she stopped breathing. She died. And so for these last 12 years, I've been trying to find a way that wouldn't happen. And I'm very sad to say that it's the community assessment and transport team, CAT. So in Alameda County now, with the failure of the specialized care unit, now mental health crisis, mental health calls will go to the county. There will be a team stationed in Jack London Square who will be responsible for responding to emergencies in Berkeley. The CAT team is only dispatched as a result of a 911 call to police. So it's a terrible failure, it's a terrible gaping hole in our emergency response infrastructure. I guess the reason why I bring this to your attention is because I believe that part of that failure had to do not only with the Nita House, but with the lack of political will by our city council, and by the lack of cooperation that we got from the police department. They were unwilling to meet with members of the community. I served on the task force, on the steering committee. We tried over and over. How can we get calls from the community to these clinical, behavioral health specialists? That was never possible. There was never a serious conversation about how to alter that situation. And we are right now exactly back where we were in 2013. That it's very likely that a mental health call with officers who are kind of like a sort of in a race, sometimes trained, oriented to what a mental health crisis is, but not trained how to de-escalate. What they count as de-escalation, their idea of de-escalation, tactical de-escalation, is when they use alternatives to live ammo. When they use stun guns, or not stun guns, but when they use less lethal munitions, or they use other weaponry. But that's very different than a mental health perspective of de-escalation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now move on to our virtual attendees. If you're attending via Zoom and would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand icon or press *9 on your phone to be recognized. Vice Chair, at this time, I see no hands raised.
Okay, let's move on to the ODPA staff report.
Yes, good evening, Vice Chair, board members, colleagues, members of the community. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to make this announcement every time we have a specialty month, and we always do.
Sorry, just we skipped, I believe we skipped over approval.
Oh, approval of this, I'm sorry. We need to approve the minutes from the September 3rd meeting. Do I have a motion?
Yes, so moved.
I'll second.
Seeing or hearing no objections, the motion carries. We can now move on to staff reports.
All right.
Thanks. So specialty month is Hispanic Heritage Month or Latino Heritage Month. We have the city does an event. We'll circulate that information. We're happy to participate again this year. Also, just as a follow-up to a public comment and as a follow-up to the last meeting, our office did submit that report that went before you. We informed council or that committee of our interest in sending it to council as is our sort of authority or right under the council procedures. So there was a little exchange about that and what that meant. There was a request to withdraw that item and resubmit it. We are going to work with the clerk's office because our office did submit the report. For whatever reason, at the draft agenda packet stage, they don't always put the report. So one of the reasons the council members had hesitancy is because they didn't see the staff report, the one that went before the board. So they're like, well, we can't vote on it. And I respect the general premise, but at the agenda rule committee, they're not really looking at the substance of the report anyway. They're looking just at the item. So even if it wasn't there, it should have or could have moved forward. There was instance where they tried to give a negative sort of recommendation, which is also outside the procedure of that agenda. So the clerk was able to spot that in real time and inform them that at this point, they're either putting it on the agenda or they would have to allow the director charter officer to put it on the agenda. So ultimately made it on the agenda for the 30th and will be presented it to them. They did ask, now did make a note of that, and it isn't codified, but they asked what was the PAB's viewpoint on it, and almost suggested as if it was a concern that the PAB didn't formally opine on it. But the procedures don't really require when there's a companion report or recommendation for the PAB to necessarily have a formal opinion on the charter or report, so we're probably gonna have to create some sort of system or talk to council, because they might have that expectation that Pat says something. So, and I'll make a note of that and not present those items. I won't take up too much time, I'll just, I'll note that in the agenda, I put a recap of a recent conference I attended, a Latino Social Workers Conference. It's also timely to another public comment that was made. We were having a conversation about the escalation and, talking to a room of social workers about what we do in civilian oversight. And there was also this, a lot of them had interest in the co-responder model or de-escalation models that are out there. They talked about the homes, which we modeled our specialized care unit after, and I gently informed them that that was not something that was able to be followed through in our city. But it was really good conversation for us to be part of and to spread our information about civilian oversight. And this is probably the last reminder, but the NACO conference is coming up October 26th or 30th. If there's interest from board members attending, we're happy to make that work. We do have some dedicated funds for training, and we can cover that participation. We just have to know who is possible. And Madam Vice Chair, I'll go ahead and turn it back to you if you have any questions.
No, I don't think so. Any other board members? Okay. We're gonna move on to chair and board members' reports. Any board members? A report? Okay, I don't have a report, but I'm glad you stepped back in, Pritchett, because
You're glad
that, Ms. Pritchett stepped back in, because I would like to agendize at a future meeting, a conversation about the status of the SCU. I was concerned when I saw that the city transitioned responsibility to the county, and that, I didn't learn about that, I don't think we did until after the fact. I defer to you as to when the appropriate time is to put that on the agenda, because it might be helpful to wait a bit and see what the county actually does. So I would ask that you can reach out to the director, Jose, and just share when you think it might be appropriate to bring forward an update and discussion as an agenda item. And when we do that, it would be great if somebody from the county could participate, at least via phone or Zoom.
I have a number of the guy who gave a presentation yesterday, so I can give.
Okay, perfect. So that's not a report, but just a request for staff that we put that on a future agenda for discussion. All right, with that, I think we can move on to the chief of police's report.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Starting out just with a couple cases of interest. There have been a few cases that have closely touched our local public schools in the past couple of weeks, and I'd like to take a second to acknowledge both of them. We work in close partnership with the school district and understand the gravity that these incidents have had on the students, the teachers, the victims, the bystanders, and the community as a whole. The first incident was on September 8th at King and Ashby, nearby Malcolm X, and this happened at about 4:50 in the afternoon, and when officers responded to multiple calls reporting a shooting in the area of King and Ashby. When our officers got there, they located shell casings and recovered them at King, just south of Ashby. Our officers interviewed several witnesses and determined that the shooting was not directed at the nearby school, and that does remain an active investigation. The other incident occurred just yesterday at 7:46 in the morning. Our communication center received multiple 911 calls reporting a hit and run incident that involved several pedestrians in the 2700 block of Belrose. And callers reported that a vehicle had driven onto the sidewalk, had struck two individuals, and then while officers were en route, updates indicated that the suspect had fled the area on Derby, and the suspect vehicle was later abandoned near Emerson Elementary School, and that's the 2800 block of Garber. At that point, the suspect tried to carjack another individual before he fled on foot, and then our officers were able to quickly locate and apprehend him in the 2800 block of College. There was a third victim that was located on Derby. He had been riding a bicycle and he was transported for medical treatment. So in total, we had 3 victims that were all transported to the hospital, and all 3 victims were identified as adults. The subsequent investigation confirmed that the vehicle that the suspect had been driving was in fact stolen out of Richmond, and the suspect was identified as a 26-year-old man out of Vallejo. He was arrested and booked into our city jail and is facing multiple felony charges, including attempted murder, attempted carjacking, DUI causing injury, resisting arrest, vandalism, and possession of a stolen vehicle. At this point, thankfully, all victims are in stable condition. Yesterday's incident was particularly horrific and caused significant concern for our community, given the close proximity to our local schools and residential areas. I'd like to share that both of these incidents, either flock technology or private security video footage, has proven not only to be instrumental in investigating the matters, but it also captured the true impact it had on the community, how frightening the events were, and it helped share the gravity of these with the district attorney's office as they consider charging. With that, shifting gears to our staffing update, police officers, we have 152 right now. 5 are currently in the academy. One is injured, but our next graduation date will be October 31st. We have 6 in backgrounds. 2 conditional offers were made by the chief last week, and we're hoping that they'll start the academy at the end of October. We had 9 interviews today, and our next testing is October 25th. We also just had 2 graduates from the academy enter our FTO program, with 2 more slated to graduate next month. Dispatchers, we have 3 that are starting September 29th. So right now we're at 20 of 36. We have 6 in backgrounds, and our next testing is in December. And then lastly, as you may have heard at the September 9th council meeting, the department is going to be holding a community meeting to discuss surveillance camera technologies. And I wanted to share that we anticipate that meeting will take place the week of October 13th. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. Deputy Chief Tate, thank you for your report. On the agenda tonight, we're to consider the computer voice stress analyzers that I understand the department uses in some cases, and I'm wondering confirmation from you that they're still in use and in what circumstances. Not sure if it was something you can address right now.
I did not see that on the agenda. I want to confirm that that's the CVSA. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we do use those instead of a polygraph examination in our background investigations for police and dispatcher applicants.
For applicants?
For applicants, yes. Those are we use them for employee background investigations.
Okay, thank you.
So this relates to a question I was gonna ask the director. Did you have a chance to circle around with the department? There's 3 items that we had discussed, the AI assisted report writing, the CVSA, and getting the third one.
The drums.
Maybe it was just 2, not the drones.
Yeah, no, we discussed that,
Okay.
But I just had a quick follow-up to Deputy Chief. Deputy Chief, in the policy, it also indicates that they can't be used for criminal investigations. Is it the department's practice that is not used for criminal, or?
I cannot think of any recent case where we have used it in a criminal investigation, no.
Okay. Can I ask, so I'm sorry, I think I heard you say you had not seen the item that's on today's agenda for the CVSA, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so similarly, you probably haven't seen the item on AI assisted report writing, is that correct?
I have not seen the item, but what I can share is that I believe the district attorney is working on putting something out regarding the use of AI in report writing. I think that's coming soon from the district attorney's office.
Oh, for all agencies in the county?
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Another agenda item has to do with police radio encryption. And I understand that there was the California Department of Justice issued a policy requiring all law enforcement agencies to protect personally identifiable information transmitted over radio. And departments were given two options. And based on this report, it sounds like Berkeley Department hasn't acted on this yet. And I just wondered if you could advise us about where things stand and if the department's considering any alternatives, because it sounds like there's some alternatives to encrypting all radio communications.
So at this time, we intend to keep the status quo, which has been not encrypting our channel 1. We have a dedicated radio channel, which is channel 3, that is encrypted, and that's where we share all the PI&I. So we will continue with our training with dispatch to make sure that PI&I is shared on that channel, so that at least at this point in time, we continue operations as normal.
So the department feels like it's in compliance with the Department of Justice order.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and that was the third one, director, that I was thinking about when I said there were 3 things to follow the department on. So thanks for asking that. Any other questions for the deputy chief? Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here with us. We'll move on to subcommittee reports.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I'll proceed with the subcommittee reports, starting with the regulation subcommittee. Any updates since our last meeting?
Well, we continue to have meetings. This week we had 2, yesterday and tomorrow. And we're making some slow progress, but we've gotten to the point now where on several, I would say there's about 3 issues that the PAB representatives, board member Lethbridge and I, representing the PAB, feel very strongly about. They were something that the PAB voted unanimously in favor of when we passed the draft regulations 2 years ago. And it is going to be a challenge to reach consensus with the internal stakeholders on these issues, I predict. And as of now, I don't think we can talk in open session about what these issues are. But we will continue to pursue that possibility. Just to say that right now, we've really hit the spots that might be thorniest in these regulations, and so we will do our best.
Okay, I just want to share that the chair updated the director and I think the chair and the director updated me on kind of the latest with this when we met earlier this week. And I do think it's really important that we figure out how to have a public conversation because accountability is important and it starts when things are discussed in public. So I think we all share that goal and we're going to figure out how to do that so that at least ourselves and the public can be educated about what these areas of impasse are, not to use a technical labor negotiations term. But anyway.
And I should clarify that the difficulties. It's not so much that we have reached an impasse with the union.
No, I know.
But that
Okay.
thank for the public.
Yeah.
That it's the internal stakeholders, of which there are about 8, including the chief of police, HR, the city attorney's office, the city manager's office, and so forth. And so this group has to reach an agreement
on the draft to be presented to the union in a meet and confer. So it feels as if we're doing two meet and confers, I have to say. First with the internal stakeholders, then with the union.
Which is very frustrating to us because these are our regulations. But we're being told that we have to reach consensus with other internal stakeholders.
Consensus.
Well, so if we reach a point where we cannot reach consensus, then the understanding is that we go to council to break that.
Okay,
Okay. Policy review subcommittee, any updates since our last meeting?
No,
Okay, metrics and operations,
no updates.
outreach and engagement,
No updates.
arrest code of prohibition,
No updates.
and policies and practices on Ken clearances.
I'm sorry, which one is that?
No update.
No updates, it was the policies and practices. And are there any updates from our liaisons or policy complaint leads?
Just wanted to say that we continue to work on this, on these two policy reviews that I've been assigned.
Okay. With that, Vice Chair, concludes subcommittee reports.
So we will move on to discussion and action items. Starting with APA presentation of the policy reviews. Turn it over to the director.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
And before you get started, if I could ask that as you introduce each item, could you start off by clarifying what you are asking the board to do in terms of approving a specific recommendation or just this item's discussion only? Thank you.
And we have a special guest, our partners that work with this today. So I'll introduce you shortly. But we have two items, these are policy reviews that we brought before the body last summer. The two items that we felt that there was public interest in, and we also received immediate inquiries from. So one was when we talked about earlier today with CBSA, the computer voice stress analysis tool. And it is a tool that's currently within the policy of the department, and also just from my DC tape that it is something that's used at least for recruitment purposes. But that issue brought to us by newspaper articles from San Francisco Chronicle, where they started doing an analysis of this tool and how many departments were utilizing it, and also whether it was legally permissible, whether it was empirically valid. So there was a lot of concerns about the tool. We took the opportunity to look into it, and we also partnered with our friends at the Berkeley Law School, Criminal Law and Justice Center, headed by Executive Director Jason Woodine, who's present with us. And then the other item is the AI police report item. And that is a proactive approach for us, for our office, where we also saw that this tool had been presented in the policing world. And we wanted to get ahead of it and start reviewing whether that is something that would be appropriate for our department to consider at one point, or if it's something that we should be a little bit more cautious about. And at that time, we did not have any information that the department was interested in procuring or purchasing, so it was strictly proactive. We saw a lot of public reports and marketing on that tool. So for today's ask, we're going to present our analysis in partnership with the Criminal Law and Justice Center, and we're going to ask the board whether they want to take further action, whether it be to follow through on some of the recommendations we made for the AI item, which was potentially piloted, and or for the CBSA item would be to work with the department to have that tool removed from its use if it's not aligned with best practices or the scientific evidence on it. So those will be the two potential outcomes, for the board tonight.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and now I'd like to introduce our guest. I'm not sure if you're interested for the podium or we have a designated area there, if you wanna.
Good evening. Director Aguilar, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. My name is Jason Boudin. I'm the Executive Director of the Berkeley Law School Criminal Law Justice Center. And previous to this role, I served as elected district attorney in San Francisco and for many years as a deputy criminal defender in San Francisco. After a couple of years of working at the law school and numerous conversations with members of this body, members of the city council, with Director Aguilar and his staff, my students, my team, and myself had the opportunity to study a variety of issues related to police technology and surveillance and public safety here in the city of Berkeley. We also had partnerships with the Alameda County District Attorney in a variety of capacities. What I'm hoping to do tonight is just very briefly present some research that we did at the request of Director Aguilar into two very specific technologies. One, long-standing, well-established, and another new and emerging. At the outset, I want to just acknowledge that I recognize how difficult it can be for any institution to change and move away from something that is deeply embedded in culture or practice. And also how difficult it can be to identify in advance risks and opportunities when new technologies or practices become familiar. We go to the next slide, please. So the two technologies that we're going to be talking about tonight, as you already heard, are the computer voice stress analyzer and the AI report writing called Draft One, which is a product put out by Axon, one of the companies that also has pretty significant market share for body-worn camera technology. Our goal is not to do original primary research with some unique data set. We do not have access to that data, but rather to do a secondary review of existing literature, case studies, and to have informal conversations with both members of the Berkeley community, as well as other jurisdictions and agencies, including police chiefs, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and more, who have exposure to, the access to, or otherwise are using these technologies. Next slide, please. Our goal was to come up with evidence-based recommendations for police technology use. To be very clear, we don't have a dog in any fights around this issue. We're simply here trying to assist this board and this community in making decisions about these new and emerging technology issues. So just a quick overview of our research methodology. As I mentioned, our goal was to assess validity and accuracy, to look at operational impact analysis, and also to consider risks, including civil liberties, privacy, and others. Certainly, any technology, whether we are talking about forensics, fingerprint, bite mark analysis, DNA, have the risks and the opportunities, both of resulting in wrongful convictions or of avoiding them. They have operational impact in terms of dramatically increasing the amount of time that investigating officers in the field spend responding to a particular kind of case or call or service, and also potentially increasing efficiency and reducing overtime or allowing for more efficient use of limited resources. All of these opportunities also have risks. And so when we talk about onboarding new technologies, whether body-worn cameras, when those first came on board, license plate readers, risk assessment algorithms, there's always a need to study and understand the impact on things like racial bias or implicit bias, to understand also the downstream implications, not just for officers in the field, but also for district attorneys and defense attorneys and judges, when evidence gathered using these technologies ends up being introduced in criminal cases or other kinds of cases, which I will talk briefly about. Next slide, please. So I want to first start by talking briefly about the computer voice stress analyzer. We all just heard during the chief's report that this technology is still in use in Berkeley, and that the department, as we understand it, has used it for decades, primarily not for external criminal investigative purposes, but rather for internal administrative purposes. Well, administrative investigations and hiring decisions obviously raise fewer constitutional concerns than criminal investigations do. We nevertheless have very serious concerns about its ongoing use. We worry, for example, that a totally qualified and otherwise appropriate potential cadet who could be hired and help fill vacancies in the department might be ruled out based on false positive from this unreliable technology. That's just one hypothetical example of a way in which using this unreliable technology could both prejudice an individual who seeks to join the department and also could undermine the department's broader goals. We saw, as has been reported in the media and documented in the literature that we reviewed, that this technology is no better than random. And when you're making hiring decisions about people who are entrusted to carry a gun and to use handcuffs and to wear a star on their uniform, it's critical that we make those decisions using tools and processes that are better than random. This technology does not seem to be better than random, doesn't seem to be fair either to the people being investigated or considered for hiring or to the broader community. And for that reason, consistent with all of the media reports and literature, we recommend that it cease use immediately. Next slide, please. The AI report writing analysis.
Let me pause there, Vic. It'd be good to take these one by one. Do any board members have questions or comments on the CDSA initiative?
Was there any literature that you found that supported the use of it for the applications that the police department uses it for?
Not really. I mean, short answer is no. The best, I guess you could say, evidence we found for its ongoing use was the precedent, the fact that it has been used for 25 years. We didn't find, though I can't claim to have done an exhaustive review, any litigation, primarily would have been in the employment context related to its use. But again, most employment matters settle without published court opinions. So it wouldn't surprise me, though I can't verify one or the other, whether it's actually cost the city significant amounts of money in not just the processing time of using it, but rather the backlash and the fallout from using it. But the short answer is no, I couldn't find anything that supports the ongoing use. And I would be curious to hear more from the chief or from the department about what value they feel it adds, given that the research shows it's no better than a random outcome. There are very real and important questions that the chief and the hiring committees within the department need to ask potential candidates and need to assess the credibility of those answers. Of course, there are lots of ways to do background checks on people. I can think of cases where officers who have been previously found to have falsified reports or committed other kinds of misconduct have lied on applications to future police departments to which they applied. Diligent background checks can reveal that dishonesty. Similar kinds of background checks can reveal dishonesty when it comes to drug use or history of substance abuse. There are ways to do these background tests. Some of them are more expensive and time consuming than using this sort of relatively quick and efficient technology. Our concern is about the reliability and therefore the utility of this shortcut.
Other board members? Okay, let's move on. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and please do interrupt if there are questions. Feel free. AI report writing analysis is exciting and new. It's not something we have 25 years of experience with in this jurisdiction or any jurisdiction. It's cutting edge, it's emerging, it's essentially untested. And while the main focus of my comments today are going to be on its potential application to criminal cases, I want to emphasize that most departments that are using it so far, including Berkeley's as we understand it, are not planning to apply this technology today to potential criminal cases. Rather, it's being used essentially as a pilot, and this is not just Berkeley, this is other jurisdictions around the country, and we've had a chance to meet with police chiefs from at least 2 other jurisdictions in California, where this is being employed, are applying it to cases that would involve things like documenting a car accident or collision, or other kinds of calls for service that wouldn't amount to a formal presentation to the district attorney's office with a recommendation that a criminal case be initiated. Now, it makes sense for a pilot to be used on what you might consider lower stakes investigation. I do want to point out, however, before I dig into the substance of the challenges and opportunities here, that those lower stakes cases also, for the same reason, don't trigger appointment of counsel. And so if you imagine just for a second being in a dispute with an insurance company about who was at fault in a car collision, and you're not appointing counsel for that, you may not be able to afford counsel. It may be that the insurance company is relying on an AI-generated police report to make a determination about fault, liability, future insurance rates, etc. And there's no one qualified to attack the evidence the way there would be in a criminal case. So most advocates recommend that these technologies be tested in a lower stakes context, and I understand that. I just want to complicate the conversation a little bit by recognizing that those lower stakes contexts also have fewer evidentiary controls, fewer checks, fewer abilities to actually test the veracity of whatever information is produced by these reports. Now, there's a lot of unknowns about these reports, and that's why we're seeing them rolled out as pilots rather than department-wide or across all categories of cases. One of the unknowns has to do with how accurate it is, and with the extent to which inaccuracies are random or based in certain kinds of bias. There's been some empirical research looking at, for example, bias in ChatGPT, other similar large language model AI tools, in terms of how they approach certain kinds of dialects, languages, or accents. We've even seen biases in some of these tools against alternatives to incarceration, including for individuals who the AI model as a whole were wrongfully arrested or accused. So there are certainly limitations separate and apart from police department, individual officers, and how they seek to use this tool related to the quality of large language models themselves and the extent to which they have been adequately tested and trained in these kinds of field applications. There are error rates that are well documented. Now, often civil libertarians and criminal justice reformers will point out these error rates as a reason to cease and desist. I take a slightly different view myself, which is to say there's error rates in everything we do in the criminal justice system. We're striving to reduce those error rates. And if this technology can help us do that, that's a good thing. Maybe it's moving us in the right direction. Maybe the error rates using this would be lower than error rates using traditional police writing approaches. So we should be open to that possibility, but we should be vigilant about the kinds of errors that will be introduced and our ability to identify and correct them through the normal process. There's a whole series of other questions that we don't really have good answers to, like data sovereignty. Who owns the data and with whom is it being shared? We've recently seen in a number of Bay Area police departments that their license plate reader data has been shared with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, in violation of local sanctuary policies. We need to ensure that we're moving forward with these kinds of national level technology vendors who will have access to huge volumes of data, that there are clear safeguards and protocol in place for data sharing or lack thereof. This isn't just an issue with regard to ICE and immigration, also comes up with advocates around reproductive choice, for example. Just to name 2 concrete areas where this is a very real concern. There's also, well, let me step back and make clear that the way these AI police report writing tools work is essentially they take the body worn camera footage and they are transcribing any dialogue and then plugging that into a report. So they can't, at least as of yet, really fill in the gaps with things that are documented visually in body worn camera footage. What they're doing is capturing and essentially transcribing the audio. So again, there could be huge efficiencies for officers who might otherwise have to summarize interrogation with a suspect or what a victim reported heard, which led to potentially probable cause to make a stop, search, or arrest. There would be huge efficiencies in saving time that officers would otherwise spend writing down word for word to the best of their recollection, which might be far less accurate than a video reported, audio reported AI transcription. But in some instances, we can all imagine from our experience, not just using AI, but using other more traditional transcription services, especially if there's accent issues, language issues, if there's messy audio, that there are going to be very serious errors in these transcriptions that get plugged into reports. So one concern is ensuring where the accountability lies. If a report that ordinarily is not under penalty of perjury ends up including these kinds of errors that might be very, very significant, that could, in some instances, result in a wrongful conviction, or more immediately, someone being blamed for a car accident when they're not at fault, just to give a couple concrete examples. Next slide, please. If Axon's draft one or a similar technology is to be adopted and deployed on a more widespread basis, we recommend that it be done as is happening in other jurisdictions on a kind of a limited pilot program, that there be a partnership with an independent outside research agency, think tank, university that can help to document the impacts, both benefits for police staffing, for perhaps reducing the error rate, but also some of the risks that we've outlined. We want to raise for the board's consideration whether this technology would trigger Berkeley Municipal Code Section 2.9. That's perhaps something that lawyers could and should argue about, but it's certainly worth considering before the technology gets deployed. And we have a series of recommendations for safeguards that we think could help mitigate some of the risks we've identified, including disclaimers that indicate clearly on every report authored using this technology that AI was used, that officers continue to be required to sign these reports by their penalty of perjury. In other words, that they be required to review the transcription or summary of dialogue that the report generated and ensure that it's accurate to the best of their knowledge and memory. And that, as is being done in other jurisdictions, in the first instance, to be restricted to either non-arrest or non-felony cases, and that there be ongoing independent validation. I'll stop there, and that is my last slide. I guess we go to the next one, which is the closing slide, please. And if there are questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, simply offer our ongoing service if we can be of service at the law school to this board or to the city and county of Berkeley and Alameda.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Yes, Julie.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for these excellent reports. We really, really appreciate it. And one of the other items on our agenda tonight has to do with an upcoming surveillance technology proposal by a city council member regarding the use of drones and what is the other term? Unmanned aerial systems. And I just wondered if you have done research on the use of that type of technology, or if you might be willing to provide some guidance to us regarding that, because that's another one of those, you know, emerging technologies that presents a lot of complicated issues.
Absolutely. I don't want to hold myself out as an expert on that technology, but I am following closely as San Francisco's new police command center deploys a whole series of drones and similar unmanned aerial surveillance devices. I know that those technologies were reported to have been critical in recent police homicide investigation that successfully resulted in the arrest of a suspect who's been charged. So there is clearly lots of at least anecdotal evidence of the ways in which these technologies can assist police. I think in many ways, one of the best arguments or best sort of use case arguments for those sorts of technologies would be, I'll just give you a hypothetical that we can all imagine and that we all know occurs on a regular basis, probably in every major jurisdiction. There's been a lot of debate in San Francisco and the broader Bay Area and beyond about the extent to which and the circumstances in which police should be allowed to engage in high-speed chases to pursue suspects. And San Francisco, just to use an example I know well, where I live and was an elected official, recently sort of flip-flopped on its policy in this area. We know that high-speed chases can be very dangerous to pedestrians, to officers, to suspects, to the broader community. And that's the reason why for many years they were prohibited in San Francisco. But we also know that there's a lot of understandable pressure from community members to make sure that there's accountability and that people who commit crimes are caught and that police have the tools to do their jobs. Drones can dramatically reduce the risk or the incentive even for police to engage in a high-speed chase. If you have eyes in the sky that are relatively cheap and easy to deploy, much easier, for example, than a manned helicopter would be, then you can engage in a very low-risk pursuit. The suspect may not even know that they're being followed, so they may not drive recklessly. And you can radio ahead to officers or to other jurisdictions for assistance without worrying about losing their tail. That's an example of a situation where you can really see the argument for these technologies. Now, on the flip side, there are lots of concerns that groups like Electronic Frontier Foundation and the ACLU have raised about ways in which these technologies undermine privacy and civil liberties. And there are some, I think, fair to say, open questions about how courts will treat evidence gathering using these technologies. It may be that the evidence will be admissible, and it may be that that's not a primary consideration if the goal is to deter or apprehend rather than to secure convictions. But I, for one, would not want to worry about a drone hanging out in the air or outside my bedroom window 24/7. For example, just to take an extreme but plausible scenario for someone who may be being monitored, but without any court order, without any reasonable suspicion or probable cause, and to have even live stream video of that then potentially shared with, say, ICE or other law enforcement jurisdictions. So I think as with draft one, there are necessary guardrails, there are necessary transparency and disclosure requirements, and there's a need for ongoing assessment of how these technologies actually affect policing, safety, and civil liberties before they're deployed. So,
I know there's some cities, I know you weren't asked to come here tonight to talk specifically about this, but that you would say have model policies regarding the use of those type of technologies.
I'm sorry to say I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I'm more than happy to get back to you and do some follow-up research on that. I will say this is, in general, AI and emerging technologies are an area where there aren't really model policies anywhere. It's sort of the Wild West. And I think it's critical that city like Berkeley be prepared to play a leadership role, not in being luddite or scared of any new technology or refusing them until they've been vetted elsewhere, but of ensuring that we recognize new technology is here to stay and is here in ways that can benefit all of us if we deploy it properly and intentionally. And so I would encourage all of you to play a role along with City Council, Chief of Police, in thinking about what appropriate guardrails are, what accountability looks like, not just for people accused of crime, but also for agencies, whether the police or otherwise, that violate ordinances like sanctuary a city by unlawfully sharing data. And thinking about whether the courts should be the only limits we place on the ways in which these technologies can be used, or whether we as a community want to set other limits that affect our values in ways that may go further to defend civil rights and liberties and privacy than perhaps courts apply.
Thank you. I want to redirect it back to CBSA and AI, the issues we need to kind of weigh in on tonight. I do take from your comments, though, which I appreciate, proactively or in anticipation of your concurrence, that the center would be willing to support our future analysis of the drone and unmanned aerial technology, because we will be taking that up in the near term. So
It's an area we're doing active work across the country, and we welcome the opportunity to work with local government.
great. Any other comments or questions on the two items that we need to weigh in on tonight? So really good presentation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
So Director, I'm not sure how you want to proceed. I'll just share my own views. As I alluded to earlier, I do think it's important with respect to each of these, we not take action independent of an understanding of where the department currently is on these issues, and giving them an opportunity to weigh in on the recommendations that are being forward. And my understanding is they have not formally been given that opportunity. You heard from the deputy chief that she had not, for example, reviewed the items, and I have asked you if you had reached out to the department in advance, and I understand that you had not. The CBSA recommendation on its merits made sense to me, although I'm not sure how, I don't want to use the word appropriate, us weighing in on a tool the department uses in its hiring practices is not necessarily something that I see as a huge priority for us. That being said, I think it's pretty clear that the technology is problematic. And I would support moving forward, but I would want to try to do so in partnership with the department rather than us kind of voting on something tonight without giving them an opportunity to weigh in at all. That's my view on CBSA. Does any other board members agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that too, but I would say that even though Deputy Chief Tate said that they only use it for hiring practices, it's my understanding that that's not the way the policy is written.
Right.
And therefore, you know, we need to have anyway, we need to have a conversation with the department, and I take the center's report very seriously.
So maybe if I could craft a motion, I would ask the director to reach out formally to the department to share the report and the agenda item, and to say that the board, you know, would like to advance the overarching recommendation of modifying the policy to eliminate the ability to use the technology, but we'd like to do so in partnership with the department. I think that's my motion. It's not very artfully put, but
I'll second that.
great. I don't have to try to recap it, and then we can kind of take it from there based on how the department responds.
So your motion would, it sounds like have a recommendation or some kind of position that the PAB is taking with regards to the.
No, to ask my recommendation is to ask the director, the motion is to ask the director to share these materials with the department formally, to say that we would, I guess, that we would like to advance the ultimate recommendation, which is to stop using the technology, but we want to do so in partnership with the department, to give them an opportunity to say, no, here's why we really think we need to keep using it. Perhaps we can agree on the policy modification for all other purposes other than hiring. I just want to initiate a dialogue. I guess I am comfortable saying, based on what I read here, as well as the news articles that initiated this coming to us in the first instance, which probably happened before your return, I'm pretty convinced that the technology is flawed and shouldn't be used. But I would like to, you know, work collaboratively on this one.
I would second that motion.
I think we have.
Already seconded.
I'll repeat the motion just to make sure that what I wrote down captures the spirit of what the vice chair shared convey. So the motion is to request that the director reach out to the Berkeley Police Department to communicate to them that the PAB would like to advance on the recommendation, the partnership with the department. That's what I jotted down. Just want to confirm if that captures the spirit like to modify.
I think it captures the spirit, it's simpler, but.
Well, I would support that because it sounds like it would be, based on the response, we would make the determination as to our recommendation. I don't know if I would support your initial recommendation,
Yeah.
no disrespect.
I didn't understand your summary to be what the vice chair said. I thought the vice chair said that we would like to have this conversation with the department, and our initial recommendation would be that they cease using this technology, but we would like to do it in collaboration with the department. But it was more substantive than what you read. Is that correct, Vice Chair?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So could we restate the motion just
The motion is for the director to share the materials on CDSA presented to the PAB on September 17th with the department. And to share the fact that the board generally supports the recommendation to cease use of the CDSA technology. But that we would like to work on, I don't know how to word this, but work on this with the department collaboratively. Work on finalizing our recommendation or our position collaboratively with the department.
If possible.
okay. And board member Lovich, do you still second that motion?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll receive the roll call vote. Okay. Board member Calavito,
Yes.
board member Lovich,
Yes.
board member Walls,
Yes.
board member Adams,
Yes.
board member Bill Charco,
Yes.
and vice chair Wilson.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Well, let's move on to AI. Do you want to share, Director, what your recommendations are?
Yes, and one thing I just wanna highlight too, that, we also work with the law students. Collaborating with them on this, the PRP, the Police Review Project. From time to time, it comes to our meetings, but the primary service has been to assist our complainants with representation in the process. We don't always have complainants that need representation, so they asked us, is there anything else they can support? So we said, that we have policy reviews, and they also provided information and their assessment on that, so just wanted to highlight that. In this particular item, what we were thinking, as the executive director said, this technology is emerging. If we don't have the years and the decades of data science and empirical evidence to suggest that it is technology that we for sure need to adopt immediately. But there are some promises to it, and I think what we were in alignment with the CLJC that if there was any approach with this technology, it should be done in the sort of pilot program, carefully designed, and it should consider what the specific uses are. We don't believe it's appropriate for all cases for the stated reasons of bias and then just technology the way it is, but it might save some time on some cases. And it might be important to test that out before we do a full department-wide deployment. So our position is similar to CLJC, that there might be some benefits to it, and if we approach it, we should do it cautiously and do a systematic pilot.
So is this something that the council has initiated? Or is this something that we would take the lead on recommending the council that a pilot study be done for this?
Right, so and I don't know that our position was to advocate that they do a pilot program. I think we always wanted to come into this proactive, so we knew that the technology had been developed. And before we even start having conversations about it, let's sort of do the research. And the research that we felt comfortable that fully adopting is premature. So it may be that the PAB may issue some sort of statement or letter to council saying, we looked at this issue. We don't know what the council's wishes is, or maybe you might wanna talk to them and or the department. However, if we want to consider this technology, please consider the following. The pilot program, consider that there's some issue of bias in the technology, and how do we do something that's systematic and safeguards the community.
I guess my question is, has there been noise coming out of council that this is something that they're considering, or
Not
is
the,
it premature for us to move forward?
Yeah. To my knowledge, now the current composition, I do know in passing, I just talked to a previous council member who had this concern. About how do we adopt more technologies, for the department that sort of streamline. And that council member did, specifically, talk about AI tools, but at that point, we weren't even doing this, report analysis yet.
Any other board members?
But so again, Director, what are you asking the board for?
So essentially, this will be a little bit different because there's no policy in place, so it would be. Potentially putting out a statement saying, we looked at this issue, we all know the department stance, whether it is something, a tool they want to adopt. However, this is sort of our proactive take on this. And that again is a little unusual in terms of your traditional process. You have actual practice or procedure in place that you're reviewing. This one is more proactive.
Guess my thought is that we already have so much on our plate that it's good to have this at the ready if we need it, but it seems a bit premature to me to be taking a board stance on it. Other board members?
Wait, I concur.
Yeah, because we would be asking the staff to do more research on it. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know that we would at this juncture do more research. So I think we were satisfied with the preliminary research that we did and also with the partnership, they, sent.
So this is more or less information item for us.
It can be just information or it can be an action item if you want.
So I think, I'm started looking at the item again. I do think it would be helpful if staff would work on the agenda items to be really clear about what their recommendation is, because there's a section called findings and recommendations, but that includes CLCJC's recommendation. And then ODPA's findings and conclusions is a narrative. It's just not clear, like exactly what the recommendations are coming from staff.
Yeah, sorry, if I may real quick, just, it was a non-traditional sort of report setup, so we didn't stick to the, especially because we partnered with them, we didn't want to redo any of the work, we thought that their report stood on its own.
Okay. I would share just a couple of comments that I provided to the director prior to the meeting. We saw later on in this packet in the legislative updates reference to SB, I think it's 254, which is a bill that's pending governing the use of AI in police report writing statewide. And then Councilmember Bartlett shared with me an citywide AI policy that I believe is going forward to the committee of council later on this month. And we heard from Deputy Chief Tate, it sounds like the district attorney is developing guidance for policing agencies countywide. So with all of that context in mind, I particularly feel like it would be premature for us to kind of step in. That being said, it's obviously a really important issue. I am very AI kind of friendly and in my own life, my own work. I'm not scared of the tool. It does need oversight, it needs auditing. You need to be careful in how you build it and use it. I do think ultimately we should be involved in the development of those policies. I think that would be appropriate, including policies around auditing and accountability. But I think it's a little premature for us to step in now. So it's an issue I'd like to ask staff to monitor without us taking action at this time. Does anyone have a different view in the board?
I agree. Can we formalize it with a vote and we'll just keep it for the record?
Sure. Someone else make the motion. I'm not very articulate tonight with my motions.
Okay, I move that staff monitor the development of AI with respect to police reports and report back to the board any developments of significance.
I second that.
Okay.
Wait, roll call vote.
Board Member Calavita,
Yes.
Board Member Leftwich.
Yeah.
Board Member Wells.
Yes.
Board Member Edmonds,
Yes.
Board Member Bozo Turco.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
And I just want to clarify, or ask that include this SB 254, any city council adopted overarching citywide AI policy and any guidance put out by the district attorney to approve from agencies, in addition to whatever the department shares it's doing in this space. Okay. I think we are ready to move on to 9B, radio encryption.
If you want to summarize the issue of, Madam Murillo, I'll just, while you're preparing that, in essence, our office was alerted that, there was a potential, switch, or was gonna be a switch in our radios, police radios that are used. They were going to go from being open, which they currently are, to being encrypted. We didn't have any prior knowledge about this, we were reached out by a member of the media. So it was news to us, we reached out, the chief gave us a preliminary, response. And then a more formal response, and it is our understanding that they, for the moment, paused on encrypting the radios, but it is something that potentially coming down. So we wanted to alert you about this. We didn't do a deep dive into this matter, we did put some preliminary thoughts. What Adam, if you wanna restate anything or anything that I might have missed?
Sure. The Director Aguilar noted and the Deputy Chief noted, in terms of the radio encryption, the VPD is currently at the status quo. The public channel is channel 1, and then the encrypted for any personal identifying information is channel 3. With that said, though, and as we noted, and the reason the site originally came to us through that media inquiry was that the rest of the county has already gone to encrypted radios, as well as various other jurisdictions to follow that California Department of Justice memorandum on the protection of private identifying information. In terms of the actual guidance, as we noted previously, there are multiple options in terms of how to comply with that memorandum. The first and the easiest in terms of transition is the complete encryption of all radio channels, while the other options include, or some of the other alternatives that have been implemented include, like what Berkeley does, in terms of having an alternative open channel where that information isn't shared, or as well as having a delayed playback of radio communications, as well as a few other alternatives that other jurisdictions have taken. With that said, as Director noted, there isn't per se any immediate action, as the Deputy Chief noted, the radios continue to be, or rather, Channel 1 continues to be open to the public and unencrypted. But we wanted to bring this in case the board wanted us to look into this further proactively and conduct any additional research so that if and when this encryption is inevitable, whether that be through a change in state law. There's already been a change or attempted change that placed some restrictions. But that ultimately didn't go through to maintain those channels open. Yes, ultimately it's similar to an informational item. Should the board want us to conduct additional research, we're certainly happy to do so, but we just want to provide an overview of what that process was and why it was even brought up in terms of the conversation this board. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Director, that I might have missed?
Not at this time.
Does the board wish to take any action on this item?
Can I ask one question? So we're just waiting to see what Berkeley PD decides next, essentially.
It's our understanding, and as the deputy chief noted, that the BPD is not encrypting their radios at this time. They're continuing with it because it's their interpretation that still complies with DOJ's memo. But within the communication that we received, alerting us of this initially, there was a possibility that that transition could happen if state law were to change and there was additional guidance that was placed upon the BPD.
Do you have a desire to take action at this time?
Do I?
Yes, okay. The other board members? All right, thank you. I think we have a good sense of where.
So you can public comment on this?
No, we'll have public comment moment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. With that, I'm going to move on. I would say that it would be helpful, and we would expect the department to give us any updated information about a plan to transition to fully encrypted before it does so. So I don't want to make a motion to that effect, but we would like to get a heads up. They're gonna make that transition.
Can I get clarification about, is this going to be, is this a policy? Is this a policy?
Going to be encrypted or practically.
Right, is there something in the policy manual about this? Is there going to be a written policy? Because if so, then you're supposed to, do a review.
Yeah, I don't have the immediate answer for that. I would have to get back to that. I don't recall specific policy on. Oh, what, I don't know, Lieutenant, sorry, you put you.
Within the memo, during my review drafting this, policy 805 protecting information.
Okay, that's right.
Speaks to this topic.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Policy 805 protected information is the policy where it's described in the manual.
So the policy would be changing if they in fact go to encryption.
Correct.
Okay, and then that would trigger our participation anyway.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
So, but I don't quite understand, the California Department of Justice has issued a policy requiring encryption? Or what?
As I understood, it was encryption or redaction, which is what we're currently doing, right?
Yes.
We're redacting.
Encrypt all radio communications or implement policies prohibiting the broadcast of PII or on public channels.
And that's what we're doing.
I guess I need to know more about it and what it is. And also I think that we should strongly request that in this instance. I know the charter says that we have get to review policies within 30 days after implementation, but that we request notification ahead of time. So we can write in.
Okay. And I'll just probably say that I'll follow up with the chief on that, and I do have a meeting, a regular scheduled meeting this week or so.
Okay, Let's move on to 9C, the drone item. Public comment is item 10, we're in item 9C.
Then we didn't get public comment?
No, you can provide public comment on 9B, and when we get to 10, public comment.
In this particular item, again, it was more proactive, the referral process hasn't been received. But there is interest to by Councilmember Tapping's office to refer to the city manager the initiation of BMC 299, which is the surveillance, the STO, the surveillance technology ordinance, to explore acquiring drones or unmanned aerial systems. So we wanted to, because this is time bound and time sensitive, make sure that the PAB is aware, especially in light of potential changes in the board and different meetings. So we just need to make sure that we're keeping track of this. If the board wants to put forth some sort of recommendation or position on the item, the surveillance technology ordinance does require the PAB to be engaged. We just went through this process with this external surveillance cameras and block ID, so it'll be similar to that process. And we also know, we put in the memo that we have done preliminary on this item about 2 years ago now. We did some review on unmanned aerial systems, but again, the context is a little bit different. If we were to do a review again, we'll consider more of the current context at both the federal and the local level and how these technologies can be applied. And also we got a preliminary commitment from the Berkeley Center if you want to explore these issues deeper. So they're also a potential partner.
I would move that we ask them immediately, the UC Berkeley Criminal Law and Justice Center, to publish a report on this and work with us on this. He did seem amenable, and it is time sensitive and complicated, so I would move that we make that request formally.
Can I clarify the dates of what is going to trigger the timeline for our review and input? Is it if council approves the topic item? And that triggers the 30-day timeframe for us?
Right, and as when you speak a little bit more to the specifics of that process?
Yeah, so the difference here is, so the proposal, or rather the review hasn't itself started. This is essentially asking the council to allow them to review it. So they still have to go through the process, and they being the VPD and the city manager, I forget who also noted, within the request, but to essentially start drafting the acquisition report and reviewing what the cost would be to see if it would be feasible to acquire a fleet of drones or whatever the final proposal will be to that regard. Once those documents are drafted, they have to be formally presented to us for that timeline to kick in. So council's approval doesn't necessarily start our clock. It's more of, in this instance, we're bringing it here now for flag it that it's coming up and that it may be potentially approved with the timeline for the actual surveillance acquisition report unknown as to when it would actually be delivered to us.
But before the acquisition proceeded, you would have to vote on the proposal for acquisition, correct?
They would, correct, council would have to vote to approve the proposal to initiate the process. Not necessarily on the acquisition itself, but just to commence the review process.
I feel like we should get ahead of this one and ask the center to collaborate with us, or not so much collaborate, but share their research with us on this technology. It's great that we have them right here locally, and you seem to be amenable to doing that. And I don't think we should wait until this process, the train is already started by moving forward. I think we should get ahead and get some idea of what pros and cons are.
So the motion's still live or?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I'm sorry, I wanted to to better understand the time frame issue, which I think is a little bit different than what I had understood. I will second the motion.
Can I ask, are there any costs involved with working with?
To Berkeley.
Yeah.
To go on, does that?
Yeah.
For this one, it was, freebie, I don't know what that would look like in terms of scope of services, we can discuss it whether they would. Wanna go to a formal agreement there, they are sort of research tank and they partner all the time, but. We could talk about the specifics of that to see if that's even viable for us, but for this particular reviews that we talked to you before, there was no. Exchange.
Okay, so I'll repeat the motion just to make sure I got it correctly. So the motion by board member Lethwich was to move to request that the ODPA ask the UC Berkeley Criminal Justice and Law Center to partner with the office for the review of the drones and or UAS, the unmanned aerial systems. And it was seconded by Vice Chair Wilson.
Right.
Okay, I'll proceed to the roll call vote. Board member Calavita,
Yes.
board member Lethwich.
Yeah.
Board member Wells,
Yes.
board member Edmonds,
Yes.
board member Boswell Fargo,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Wilson.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Can I just say that I feel like it's ironic that we have on the agenda tonight two items. The drone item and the encryption item. In which people seem to be playing with the issue of privacy in different ways according to what their interests are. The drone item seems to me. On the surface, it seems like there's serious privacy issues. And we'll see how that plays out, but, privacy is, I presume, the main reason why encryption is moving forward. I feel like it's a little bit ironic that people use privacy when it's convenient. That's all, just wanted to say that.
Let's move to item 9D.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, so we've been alerted that there is, there are a few, absences, legal absences that have been approved for October, so we will be, without quorum pretty much for the, two designated meeting dates. So we were going to, cancel, October 8th. I would say from our perspective from the office, our concern is that we had some reports that we want to bring forward, some closed session reports, in keeping in line with the timeline that we have to complete that, we would need at least one special meeting, to ensure that we complete that process. So we were asking, if the board can consider a special meeting, on a date where at least 4 members, which will be the new quorum, would be available in October. So, and I'm just double checking right now with staff, do we, so the potential meeting dates that we would, have, special meeting dates, and this will be with the special focus of the closed session reports that we bring forward, would be September 22nd. There are some holidays in that time frame, September 29th or October 6th. And we would just need a quorum, at least 4, to have a special meeting.
Sorry, the dates are again.
We have September 22nd, September 29th, or October 6th. And we can also, we have flexibility, sometimes we've done special meetings during the day. If there's, that works best for board members. We could also stick to this time frame.
22nd, the 29th, or 6th.
All Mondays.
I can do the 22nd. Do you want to pull us or do you
Yeah,
want to?
can we do this?
Date?
When I wanted to at least alert you, so
Okay.
that won't happen until November potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. 9E, discussion and action on a delegate to Naples.
So Madam Vice Chair, as I mentioned, we have our April, convening next month. At this time on the board, the chair has committed. If anybody else on the board is interested to attend, please let us know. But usually the board designates somebody to go. We are members of April, so who is gonna be your proxy for that? Usually at least one person attend. Last time we had at least 3 board members. This time we had at least have a chair, so.
The chair is planning to attend.
Yes.
So I make a motion to anoint the chair as our delegate.
Did you second?
Yeah.
We have a second.
Okay.
And who's the second? one?
Board member Wells.
Okay, so I'm motion to delegate Chair Cayetano. For the Maple Conference elections, Board Member Calvita,
Yes.
Board Member Lethbridge.
Yes.
Board Member Wells.
Yes.
Board Member Edmonds.
Yes.
Board Member Bozo Charco.
Yes.
And Board Member their Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah.
Motion carries. Okay.
All right, item 10, public comment.
Okay, so as a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, maybe a lot less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter with the board jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matter comment. We'll start with those physically present before moving on to our virtual attendees. And just one moment while I get the slots on screen. So.
Sorry for, looking for, the rules here are different thanks to the houses. We came here, I went for the cop action, I'm here because of the encryption issue. And, what I'd like to ask is that, it's my recollection that Kate Harrison, this issue came up before. And I do believe that Kate Harrison took some kind of action in the city council regarding encryption, so I would request that you research that and see what action she took. One of the reasons why she took action, I believe, is because she was moved by 3 main arguments. One, obviously, Emily Russo and members of the press, the scanner would not be the scanner without open access to scanner dispatches transmissions. So she listens very diligently to that. And I also say, we're 35 years into Cop Watch. We've been monitoring the police in this community for 35 years. There's never been an incident, there's been no conflicts. We have managed to respectfully observe and document what happens without interference with police or with it. But the other one is also this issue of public safety. That we are well served when we know what the police are doing. We're supposed to be partners in public safety. We're supposed to be in this together. And more, year by year, what I see is the police like sort of, deferring to technology instead of community relations. That somehow we're gonna have drones and AI and flock surveillance cameras and we won't need, it's really troubling what this represents in the totality of the approach to how we keep our community safe. And when I look at the effectiveness of the Berkeley Police Department, I look at the clearance rate. And I say, why is our clearance rate lower than the state average? And yet we have this very highly paid police department. And they say, well, the police it's understaffing, it's an understaffing issue. Are they making good actionable cases that move forward to the district attorneys? And can all the technology in the world actually do that? But more so, when I say public safety, I say, when I hear shots fired in my neighborhood, I wanna listen to the radio, I wanna listen to the scanner app. I wanna, am I paranoid about fireworks or are these shots fired? When there's a tsunami warning, and I'm like, well, I look on the police website, and I don't really get, they say that whatever, their thing is very incorrect.
Okay,
this-
that's like your wrap.
Listening to the scanner, helps. So, I don't know if I can get a minute or so, are you gonna speak?
Yeah, Wait, my man.
Can I have one of his minutes?
Okay, I don't, is that interesting?
It is.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanna say that I'm here representing not just myself, I'm representing the folks who actually involve themselves, who go out on shifts, who walk the streets, who monitor the police, and who strive to keep our police department somewhat transparent. And I'd like to partner with you, I'd like to partner with anybody who wants to be involved in genuine community-based public safety. Just put this moment next to 5 years ago. How far we've come, how far we've drifted from that promise of partnership. So, all right, thank you very much.
I would like to mention drones again. Unmanned aerial systems, including drones as first responders. Now, I have listened to quite a few journalists from Occupy Palestine, and one thing that's prevalent in the stories that the 243 journalists that have been murdered there by the Zionist occupation forces have in common is the drones that you can hear going around, sometimes 24 hours a day within occupied Palestine. And the drones there are like quadcopters that shoot down and kill people on the street, kill the young people on the street, aim directly at the young people on the street, drop bombs on the young people on the street. Now, this could have serious effects on people, especially people who have come from countries that the US and the Zionist entity are bombing around the world. They come here to escape from the bombs. And the drones scare the crap out of them when they hear the drones, when they see the drones here. And I can only imagine how scary it must be for them to know that these drones are flying around. And if it starts with the unmanned ones that are only having cameras watching people, but where does it escalate to? Less lethal weapons, lethal weapons. This needs to be seriously watched and hopefully prevented from happening. I know Councilmember Tappleman is getting ready to run for mayor, so he's going to have many probably reactionary suggestions such as this. So please keep track of that. And I just want to make sure, Lieutenant, the last time you were here, you were a sergeant, right?
Yes.
Last time I was here, were you a sergeant?
Yes.
Okay, good. I thought it was, but I just lose my mind there. But I just found it again. So yeah, please pay attention to this drone issue. And also the artificial intelligence stuff. There's a lot of stuff, like when artificial intelligence draws pictures of most wanted people and all that, they've had bias in it. They're racially biased because of the way they've been programmed. So you need to really watch out for the artificial intelligence so that the ignorance of mainly white people who have programmed these things does not influence and make people guilty before they've been proven guilty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any additional speakers?
One of the things I noticed in the information that Mr. Bodine shared was about inaccuracy in AI transcriptions. And I know that the tools have become more sophisticated, but they have a long way to go before they can be really accurate. I mean, I often use the transcription from like a Zoom session. It's highly inaccurate. And one of the things that it just drops pretty frequently is when there's a not in the word. There's a real difference between, I did not do that and I did do that. And then some of that is in, human beings hear the not better than a machine does. It's one tiny little syllable, and often there's only like half a syllable, or there isn't half a syllable, but there's some other noise in its place. So it's just sort of an example of the ways in which something can be, 98% accurate, but the 2% that it's missing is crucial, really crucial. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
I give 2 minutes for my free, unless I gave 1 second, Andrea.
Sure.
Yeah, I also wanna echo what Andrea said, the scanner is so valuable, especially for training young people in our community. We've worked with high schoolers up to Berkeley, undergrads, teaching them that it is their right to observe police activity, and they don't need to live in fear within, a yard of an officer either. And something Andrea voiced, I also want to echo, which is that the idea that that's a privacy concern rings very hollow for us, as we're in the midst of fighting a massive expansion of surveillance technology in the city that raises huge privacy concerns. It's a flock issue, and there's literally orders of magnitude between the amount of data Block will gather on all of us and the amount of data that some bad actor could possibly gather listening to a scanner. So that's all.
Thank you. I'll now move on to our virtual attendees. Just one moment here. Jordan Harger, you have permission to speak.
Hi, my name is Jordan Harger. When I went by the name Alicia Harger, I was on the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force for about 18 months or so. I am also calling in to urge you guys to stand strong against the Berkeley Police Department's fight to encrypt their scanner. Our ability to know where police are and what they are doing is valuable in a number of ways. Andrea and Avi made that very clear, so I'm really just here to echo their concerns and their opinions. Yeah, we have the right to know where the police are. It's helpful in an emergency. It is helpful when we are trying to observe the police. As Andrea said, if there are shots fired in your neighborhood, being able to quickly ascertain where those shots came from is very important. And police transparency is, we will not achieve police transparency by kowtowing to whatever the department wants. Because generally speaking, every police department is going to be as untransparent as possible because it allows them to act with as much free range, and it allows them to act however they want without any kind of accountability. And so if they're able to encrypt their scanner, that just gives them more of an ability to act in nefarious and unjust ways. So echoing Avi and Andrea's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional public comment from those attending virtually? Vice Chair, at this time, I see no additional hands raised.
All right, and with that, I think we are going to move into closed session. Do you have any closed session?
The 3 verbal updates.
3 verbal updates, all right?
So at this time, the audio and video recording will stop. We'll be returning from closed session to announce any actions. One. Vice Chair, we're live.
All right, we've concluded closed session and there's nothing to report. With that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, good night.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 8:35 p.m.